Next 6 weeks, we're dropping episodes every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, built to get your mind locked in on mature bucks, summer scouting, and the mindset it really takes to kill one of these jokers in the Southeast. Now, I know it's hot in the summertime, and it's tough to think about being in the woods, but if you're waiting for fall, you're already behind. Let's get to work. All right, everybody, welcome to No Days Off. We're live with our newest series, No Days Off, that we're kicking off tonight.
That's right, Parker.
Boys.
In a new venue, too.
New place.
Yeah.
You might know, let's see, where are you usually right here, Matt?
Yeah, I'm usually over there.
So y'all might know this back wall right here, but we're in Matt's place. This is nice, man.
Yeah, I'm glad everybody's here. It's fun doing them in person because you can punch somebody if you get mad at them, or just laugh and have a good time. So I'm tickled to death to be able to be on here and go live.
Well, so here's the No Days Off. This is what it's all about. I'm also excited to have Drake here as our kickoff guest. Drake Deerman, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Hey, when you talk in the mic, if you can pull it up to your that way everybody will be able to hear you really good.
Right.
Yeah, that's perfect right there.
You're a singer.
Yes, sir.
So we're doing those No Days Off, and this is all about people like yourself, dude. Just guys who get it done, who are always thinking about this. I just heard you and Matt talking back and forth, and it never leaves your mind. It's always, this stuff is always at the forefront of your mind. Am I right?
Always.
Yeah.
Probably to an unhealthy extent.
That's okay. How old are you?
26.
26. So you're a young dude. And really the focus of today's episode is going to be on targeting specific deer and really picking brain on how you're doing that and how you've been doing that and how it's led to your success in the past. So where are you?
I'm from right down the road from Matthew. I'm from a town called Jacksonville, Alabama. If anybody knows Jacksonville State University, I'm live right there around. So yeah, about 30 minutes from your house.
It's not far. And what's funny, when you say that, you'd think we'd have known each other for a little longer. And we met, we knew who each other were, but it was just, I think last year, at the Mobile Hunter Expo, we started talking and
at the Mobile Hunter Expo was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think we were both like in shock. You start talking to people, you kind of hunt the same spots, you kind of hunt the same terrain, and then sometimes you have the same deer on camera and end up hunting the same deer. So there's more to it, and new stories that added from there that we never would have expected.
Ever.
And that goes into you chasing a particular deer, staying with him. And that deer, I think you were with him for how many? 3 seasons or 4, something like that, and just how you knew where he was being in the summertime, you knew where he was in the wintertime, and you figured it out. And it took a lot of time, through trail cameras, walking a lot of miles. You shed hunting probably some of the hardest terrain. I've found a couple of sheds out there, but not many people are doing it, and they're not sticking with these deer through the entirety of the season and off season as well.
Where we live, it's not exactly a target rich environment. So if you're going to have the opportunity to hunt, what would be considered really big deer here, A, you've got to find them, but B, you've got to know to expect them. If you've got a 2-year-old that's got potential, you got to wait him out till he's 5, 6, 7 years old.
You've got it because they're eating pine cones for nutrition. That's about all they have. And especially in the open woods this deer doesn't live in a small circle. They are covering vast mountains just everywhere, and you may get one picture of him, but some people get one picture and hunt that spot for the rest of the season. But when you're hunting this type of terrain, you've got to be able to move around, kind of know some of the historical spots, just over the years scouting.
That's the one of the main things that I hear from people, and myself included. This is experience too, is that big woods southern deer are tough to stay with. Good luck, and some people might just be finding a deer that comes back to a certain home range at a certain time during the rut, and that's how they're sticking with them. What's kind of like, define that? What does stay with them mean to you?
So kind of like you said, I mean, for example, a lot of guys will have a certain deer's certain home range for one reason or another. I try to do that, but have as many possible of those home ranges as possible, because I think people can't comprehend how much a deer moves, especially when you talk about a deer that lives in a 100,000-acre block of woods and has no reason to stay in one spot. And they have places that they feel comfortable, but they might have 5 or 6 of them, and they may be a mile apart. And so I guess really if I was going to try to define what I'm trying to do is like, if you get a picture of a big deer, I'm trying to locate him. And then I'm trying to find as many of those, core area type places that he has as I possibly can. And then I'm trying to figure out, and this is over, most times 2, 3, 4 years, when and why he uses each one of them. So that way over a period of time, you have history with them. And instead of going in and, trying to hunt a deer 15 times, I'm trying to know when they're going to be where and go in and kill them in 1 to 3 sits.
That's bold. And planning on doing that, like are you usually chasing these deer multiple years, or is it usually like you've got the year that you're chasing that deer? Does that question make sense?
It makes sense, and it to me it just varies, because like sometimes it happens and it's just right, and you've got what you feel like you need to have, and you go in on them and you kill them. But sometimes you find a deer that's a 3-year-old that's 115 inches, and he's got a chance to be a really big deer. And I mean, I try not to shoot them until they're at least 5, usually 6. Is when I really try to go after them hard. So I try to take that time when I'm expecting them, just watching and figuring all that out, and staying on track with that. And then when they hit that time period where they're that age, and I have a way that I can kind of break their pattern and get in there and kill them. Does that make any sense?
It does, but I'm doing some math in my head real quick, and you're a 26-year-old fella, and if you're following some deer, if you've killed deer you're talking about in the 6-year-old range, like, you've been doing this for a while. You've been keeping up this data for a minute.
One of the deer I'm gonna be hunting this year, I've got his sheds from 2021 and 2020. He was a 3-year-old in 2021. He was a 3-year-old in 21. So
that's fun.
I wasn't doing that crap when I was 20.
No,
when I was 20 and 21
we were
years
just
old.
talking about it. Like when we were that age, we were just walking in the woods and climbing a tree if we were hunting.
Yeah.
So and I think I've heard you talk about it. You work, you sleep, you hunt. That's about it. When you're not hunting, you're scouting. But yeah, like if you're finding sheds in 2020, 2021, that was right when COVID and all that stuff was happening. So, the world was going crazy. You were going deer crazy.
And you was just a young fella too back then. You was 21 years old, weren't you? Is that right?
I was 21 when COVID hit.
21?
Yeah.
That's a lot of commitment, and I think it definitely ties into the No Days Off series, man. Like there are fellas who are 50 years old who could learn a thing or two about deer hunting from a 26-year-old now, and it's true. I think maybe I saw a post or something where you're talking about being in a deer family, like you were. This is what y'all did.
Yes,
yeah.
Sir.
It's in the name, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Well,
I'm a deer man.
Yeah. So really, we're really fortunate to have family property. My parents didn't go buy it or anything, but it's just in our family. We've got about 500 acres. And really what started with it was, always growing up, my dad targeted specific deer on our property, and we grew up watching that, and he has a trophy room that, I always dreamed to have. And, so, as a kid, that was my example. I mean, a lot of guys go out and just, had a time where they were killing a lot of deer or, whatever come by. And I mean, really just when I was raised up hunting, I mean, I grew up watching my dad pick a deer out and kill it. And it's it's totally different in a way on private, just because you can manage the property, you can do what you need to do. But it was always there, the whole season leading up, it was anticipating, what's this deer going to be this year? This might be the year we want to try to kill him. And when I was 13, I started bow hunting, and the year I started bow hunting, I shot, now I mean it was all an accident, but I shot a deer that with my bow he was a 3-year-old 6-point. Would have been a 115-inch 8-point, but didn't have brow tines. And hit him in the shoulder. And when I went home and knew that I didn't kill him, I mean, I didn't sleep. I mean, just thinking about it just drove me nuts. And I ended up spending, and of course, just like me and you were talking about, you're just going in and hunting a spot because you like it. You don't really know what you're doing. But over the next 2-3 years, every time that I sat in a tree, I was just hoping to kill that deer. I mean, I was going out and scouting, still not knowing what I was doing, but I was hoping to just find something that put me on that deer, something put me on that deer. And 3 years later, I ended up killing him. And that was my first Alabama buck.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just, I guess, kind of kicked it off with, I knew I wanted to kill a deer, and just building that story up. And I mean, the way I ended up killing him and how it all happened was just crazy. Like, I didn't kill him sitting in a tree stand. We were going to hang a stand.
And he's just
but
there.
To spend that much time thinking about one deer and to finally walk up to him and put your hands on him.
Yeah. That's
and to pour everything. And
at a young age too. Like you're 13, figuring 14, that out 15. At a young age. Most guys don't. Most of us didn't have the discipline to do that at 13 to still keep trying to kill a specific deer. It's cool.
Well, and to go off of that, you look at private land, you look at public land. Which one is most likely for you to target a specific deer? It's gonna be private land, right? But I think in the last couple of years, I've seen you can target them on public. You've seen it, Parker. You've seen it, and I think this season, Parker, for you, I think it's changing for you how you're gonna look for a particular deer this year. I think that's kind of what you're leaning towards. You've told me.
Hey man, I ain't ever saying I'm not gonna put nothing in concrete.
I'm not gonna say a particular deer, but just I
want to find the biggest deer that exists in the areas that I'm hunting, and figure out where he's at and try to kill him.
Yeah.
That's fun.
But
it's a whole lot of fun.
But you see the story that comes from it. We do our videos and it's all fun telling the story, but when you have a story of a big deer with 3 years of trail cameras, the pursuit of him, all this to link in and make it, quote unquote a production, but it's showing your hard work, what you put a lot of time and sacrifice into, and then you get to share it with everybody. Yeah. And you hope people appreciate it. Some do, some don't. But I know plenty of people who we go out of public land just to kill a deer. And we've all been there.
Sure.
I mean, I'm still there. But there's instances of me that's like, man, I know this deer's here, but I can't ever connect all the dots where he's at.
Well, I've already done a lot of the episodes for this series. So I actually just did one with Cody DeQuisto. He's going to come back. He was on Kill Kit, but he's coming back on for No Days Off. And he had an opposite approach, but only because he's been there, right? Mm-hmm. He's been in he mentioned in this podcast, he's like, man, when you go back to setting up on sign and not knowing what that buck's going to look like and seeing a deer coming through the woods and you don't know what he is, but then he shows up and he's massive and it's like, oh, that's a good feeling. And it's kind of a different hunting style.
It's neat listening to him talk about that.
Yeah.
Because doing it like that, I mean, looking for one deer and all that, like, everybody that's done it knows it's exhausting and stressful. And he really has a way of putting, like, the fun of hunting back into it. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of that stuff is not fun. Mm-hmm. It's hard and it's stressful.
Yeah, especially when you're going out, you really don't want to scout, but you're like, I got to go walk up this mountain to see if there's something there. You have to check off every nook and cranny.
Yep.
Especially when you're looking for, like, here in North Alabama, for example, if you're going to be hunting a specific deer and setting up on, like, good luck finding sign. So I showed you guys this deer that I killed this last year. Not a whole lot of sign, man, around the area that he was living in. I was kind of set up in the spot that I was set up in because of the picture that I had of him, because of the knowledge that he existed. And when we did our Patreon hunt, it's another good example. A lot of the guys who were killing deer in areas that had no sign.
Yeah, there was no sign.
So when you start talking about blind hunting or going after, just going in and hunting a spot and trying to find the biggest buck and hunting sign, that's kind of what you're dependent on. And you don't always get it. Where the biggest deer are, and I'm going to say what I have seen. It's not like I haven't hunted specific deer a whole lot, but I've had encounters, and where I've seen the biggest deer of my life has been in the least amount of sign. And I think that tracks with a lot of people's experience too. And so that having the camera, it has a whole nother level of respect for what guys like Cody's doing. Going in and targeting mature deer. Like he's got a floor that he's not going to shoot under a certain inch or age or whatever. And he's doing it.
The caliber he's going.
Yeah. And he's doing it without cameras. And I think it's cool. Well, now, granted, he's also hunting Iowa, Illinois, Midwestern states. Understandable, but he's damn consistent with it,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a whole different story, and I know that was a little bit of a rabbit trail, but you're right, Matt. It having that story is a new thing for me, and it's fun. I like it.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun, but it consumes you. We've seen it firsthand, and then when you don't get the deer, it's even worse. But through all that, Drake, you just got back from going on a scouting trip, summertime scouting.
No talking about the states.
We're not gonna know. We don't drop states. May drop WMAs, but we don't drop states.
Yeah.
But no, with the no days off, we just hit summer. It was like 97 here Wednesday, 96. It's just like stupid hot. Nobody really wants to scout during that time. That's the stuff we're talking about. Nobody wants to do it, but you went. You found some really good intel. It was worth the trip, right? Like,
oh yeah, always worth the trip.
You found what you needed, and it scratched that itch just a little bit. From thinking about it, from shed hunting, which I learned he doesn't even turkey hunt, Parker. He just deer scouts.
So do you go turkey hunting? Do you take a shotgun and go turkey hunting and call, and you just scout for deer while you're doing it, or you just go scouting?
He just walks through the woods.
So
man,
okay.
Sounds like a personal problem, but I'm not here to convince you, man. Stay out of the woods, bro.
I used to be a big turkey hunter. I used to. And I used to not shed hunt. But when I started getting into the shed hunting, I would start going turkey hunting and bringing my gun and then end up looking for sheds if nothing was going on or whatever. But eventually I just caught myself doing that every time. So I just figured I'd quit toting a gun and a vest and everything else.
No, the shed. You look at Alabama's landscape. We're 75% woods. Most people are finding sheds in old fields and stuff like that. So you've got to be looking for something, in that march. And I bet, is this each season you're looking at a different area, topographic feature, food source, all that stuff, because it constantly changes. They're not on acreage year round. You don't have acreage year round. You're moving off different food sources. So so if we're in the big woods in Alabama, it's June right now, July. What are you don't have to give any secrets or nothing like this, but just a general idea of what you're looking for to find a velvet bug right now in Alabama.
I will say that is probably what I'm worst at is finding them exactly right now. I mean,
it's hard
because their bubbles are so small.
Yeah,
but they're going to be somewhere that there is a. When I say high stem count, I don't mean thick, like thick woods or something. Mm-hmm. They're going to be in something with super high forage.
Yeah,
where they can eat whatever they want, like grassy or like any kind of goldenrod type stuff, like. They're going to be in something that's cooler than everything else, and they're going to be around water. I mean, and I used to spend a lot of time trying to find that, but I realized, here it's just not as helpful because of how far they move.
It's hard.
But they're going to be somewhere with all three of those things.
Yeah.
And it gets a lot easier finding those deer when you start knowing how to see that. Like, because they don't want to move far. Their bubbles are so small right now. And then when they break that bubble, like when the velvet comes off and acorns start dropping, I mean, it's pretty consistent that I see them move anywhere between 1 to 3 miles, and they do not hardly come back with no bait, no.
Yeah, they just go.
They're just doing deer stuff. Usually 1 to 3 miles.
Yeah. Well, that's like everybody. You always hear, oh, when they shed velvet, they're going to completely change, and they do. I mean, but I've had some instances where they shed velvet and they kind of stayed where they were for a couple weeks for the first little bit of bow season, then they were gone.
Yeah.
You know, they moved right out of there. But no, that's great because I've always looked at it like you said, the small bubble, but they're not in the big open woods right now. That's not. They're going to be somewhere where it's cool, where there's water, and there's plenty of food because they're growing their antlers right now. They need the most nutrition. I hope they're probably hitting mineral sites somewhere on public that somebody put out, but for the most part, they're getting it strictly from the plants that are on that landscape.
Yeah. I got one more thing about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
If there's not anything like grassy like that, I've seen them a lot in like mountain laurel right now because they'll smash that mountain laurel.
Yeah.
I found through just even my early season success that I've had with bucks, bucks that are still doing a little bit of early season stuff. But during the summertime, when I scout and where I find most of the tracks, everything's going to be, just like you said, close to water. Now, I hunt a lot of water access, and it seems like this time of year, the deer are on points, the bucks are on points overlooking water. Like almost, it seems like all of them are there. Just points overlooking water, points with hard water. Maybe you're in a swampy area. Maybe you're in a place with a lot of creek bottoms where you have the most water. Find where those points are, and those bucks they bed there.
Yeah.
And like you said, once the acorns start dropping is really more so than velvet. I feel like it's more when the acorns start dropping.
Yeah. I agree with that. I just say that because it's all kind of in the same.
It kind of line up. Yeah. It
2
lines
3
up
week time span
for sure.
Because they'll change on a flip of the switch. Yeah. But no, okay, so we're talking about summer right here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of break down, since we're following the deer all through summer to the end of the season, we should just run through it, see where it goes.
It's June. Where are you starting?
Yeah, it's June, so we're here at June. Let's skip a little bit. Let's go to September because that's probably when I'm going to start scouting the most. It's kind of when things are starting to change. But, okay, so September comes. You're getting ready for the bow opener. You've had success on the bow opener. The first bow opener in Alabama that started in September, he had success on.
Nice.
So, okay, so going off of that had to have come from some summer scouting. No? So what month would you say that came off of?
The last time I was in there was in March.
In March? Okay. Yeah. So you were back in March.
This is going to be a bummer answer for you.
It's okay.
I got freaking lucky. That's what he's going to say.
No. September is the month I don't go in the woods.
Yeah.
September is the month I go out of state and hunt early states.
Yeah.
Because what I look for all that kind of sign right after deer season.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to start with where I start is January 28th.
Yeah, right.
Every year, the day after deer season closes, I have like an annual, I'm going to go scout from daylight to dark. And looking for new bucks, looking for bucks I've, had history with. But I try to find a lot of that sign them. And so, like, for example, like that deer that you were talking about, I want to know where a deer beds. If I'm trying to find those home ranges and then those beds when they're in those home ranges. So I actually, the first time I ever went into that place was the day after deer season. That was, I just wanted to go scout a new place, go spend a day in the woods. And I scouted that mountain that day, and there was a lot of mountain laurel on one side of it. And there was just a ton of deer sign. Some good mature deer sign. And I ended up finding a bed that had every detail that you need for there to be a mature deer there. And around that bed, there were a ton of just early rubs. I could see how he was coming in and out of that bed. I mean, there was a very defined trail for how he stood up out of that bed, used that mountain laurel to his advantage, and to get anywhere that he was going.
Yeah.
So, like, when I find something like that, I'm spending 2 hours scouting.
Yeah.
You know,
just right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I want to stop on that for a second, because I think a lot of people, like, we talk about picking out perfect trees and stuff. Like, you just said you spent 2 hours, however long you spent on one core area to learn exactly how these deer are traveling. I think most people who are in the woods, they'll just walk through a place, see some sign, and keep going.
Well, you even more to that point, Matt. You mentioned it had all the right things that you were looking for it to be a mature buck's bed, and I mean, I found a lot of beds, and I know what you're talking about, but I think many people might not know everything. What are those things that you're actually that you're like, oh, this is where a mature buck's bedded at? That to me is where it starts. Like, I want to be around here. It's what kicks you into motion to, like, okay, I'm going to spend some time here because I know this is a mature deer's bed.
Yeah. Well, 95% of the time in a bedding area, the most mature deer is going to take over the most strategical place to lay down in a bedding area, hands down. I mean, everyone I've ever found within a bedding area, he's in the best place. He's got, I mean, if there's a visual, he's got the visual. I will say I don't know around here as much about the wind-based bedding. I don't exactly think that's a thing.
We can't with how the wind blows up there.
But the most telltale, in my opinion, is the rubs.
Yeah.
If a deer's laying in one spot every day, he's gonna stand up and stretch, and when he stands up and stretches, at some point in time throughout the times he lays there, he's gonna rub, and he's gonna lay down some kind of sign. Now, when you get outside of that bubble where he spends his daytime sign, there might not be a drop of sign.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to trust a trail,
yeah,
or a topography feature coming out of there. But if say it's a real core area, and when I say a core area, I don't think a deer spends, even in a great core area, more than 3 days a week in a bed.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
if he's bedding in a place 3 days a week, that's a dang bed. But they're gonna make sign there, and then the trail's kind of leaving out, still gonna make some rubs and stuff. That to me is the most telltale. But to go deeper with that, you want it to be very strategical. Like, if you're walking through there thinking, if I was gonna have to survive every day right in here, where would I be?
Mm-hmm.
Rubs, but then think about the rubs that are in there. I don't want just fresh rubs. I want to see rubs from this year, rubs from last year, rubs from the year before that. That historical sign telling you that a deer has bedded in one area for multiple years tells you that he's been alive for multiple years.
Yeah. See, the longest time, I mean, probably I've seen no.
So
I got to find something fresh, but
most
Like a lot of
story. Yeah, that's story.
Yep.
Probably still in here.
Yep.
Remember, there is that. Let me ask you this: is that already happened by this point, or is this where you're finding places to actually start really dissecting?
I'd say it goes both ways. If I'm looking for a specific deer, I've probably already had cameras somewhere around there. If I'm in a new area, I'm probably going to get some cameras out somewhere around there. I've run cameras in the bedrooms before. I'm not a real big fan of it.
Yeah.
It just seems like they don't use them the same. Even if you don't go in there all year, if you go in there and do something, I like to have their acre bubble. Leave it what it is.
Yeah, you're talking about such a scared animal.
Yeah.
You put a new hang up fixture on his wall. He's probably going to notice.
You don't need to get pictures of him sleeping.
Yes.
Yeah. The bed stuff. I've set up a camera on a bed or on a rub, and it just doesn't doesn't happen well. Trails and scrapes are what I get the most luck on. But yeah, if you're he's like, what's that?
Exactly.
So this is a story. We kind of interrupted and sidetracked this story of this opening day deer. So you started in March and you found this stuff that you were looking for.
Going back on the beds, one more thing I'm gonna say: if he's used it for multiple years, it ain't just a bed either. It's a wallered out.
It's a hole. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I went in there, found that, and so the way that this bed sets up is you have a mountainside that's got mountain laurel on it, and these deer don't lay on flat stuff. Like these deer lay in, on bluffs, and he had a little flat on that bluff he could lay on. And he would get up in that trail in that mountain laurel, leaving that bed, went towards. He was on like a secondary ridge on the main like spine ridge of a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
That secondary ridge comes and meets the main spine ridge of the mountain, like the main face of the mountain. And he would get up out of that bed and walk in the mountain laurel and stay in it and walk around where that spine ridge and that secondary ridge meet. Go around it and disperse to wherever he was going beyond that. But at one point, as he's walking out of that mountain laurel, he where that drainage where they meet at comes up, it actually pushed his trail there's probably a 15-yard stretch about 60 yards from his bed where he had to walk out of the mountain laurel. He had to come up, loop around, go back in. And right there where that drain head popped out, you had a couple of trails that came from different directions. So you had probably 3 to 4 different trails within a really small area. And one of them was his specific trail coming out of his specific bed. So what I did is I went back there in March, built a scrape. No cameras, no nothing. I just built it and left it alone. I trusted what I found. I knew it was a good deer. I had, all the stuff that I needed to know about him, plus I had a scrape in there ready to go. Never ran a camera on it. Never had that deer on camera. Never knew what he looked like. Opening day, me and one of my buddies, Cade, he come up here and stayed with me. And for that opening day, and I was like, it's the first day you can ever hunt in September. I'm throwing a Hail Mary. So it was 1.7 miles in there the way a crow flies. Yeah. You had to go up one. I'll tell you a little bit more about it later. That's you have to go up one mountain, 600 feet in elevation, starting in the bottom, drop down to the other side, get back in cross the next creek and go back up and circle that mountain from that way to set up on that spot. So, it took, 5 hours getting in there.
Yeah.
Well, I told him, there's a little on the back side of this mountain, or on the front side of this mountain laurel thicket, there was a good acorn flat that just high odds of seeing a deer. I knew there was a mature buck living around there somewhere. I said, I'm going to go hunt this backside and get on this bed. So I went around to that backside, and what I did was I dropped back off that mountain and stayed about mid-mountain and walked around, 5 or 6 ridges, so that when I got to the ridge on the backside of where he was, I could pop up and I was 20 yards from the scrape and 60 yards from the bed. So he's on this side of the mountain on a secondary ridge. Scrapes here. I'm coming from the backside climbing. Mm-hmm. When I pop up and just go right over that crest, I'm shooting down to the scrape. And it's the same spot where that drain head pushes up out of the mountain laurel, and he's forced to come out of it. So I set up on it at about 12 o'clock. That's, it was good and windy that part of the day. So I wanted to get in there and be able to be quiet and do what I needed to do. At 1:15, I heard him cough. So at that point,
what do you remember? Like the sound? Do you remember the sound that it was?
Oh, if you hear a deer cough, you know it.
Do it.
He's like an old man.
What was it? So every time I ever hear a deer cough, I'm like, that wasn't a freaking deer. Ain't no way that was deer until I see the deer.
Well, the first time I didn't believe my ears, But then he did it again, and I was like, no, I know what that is.
There's either an old man sitting in that bed, sleeping.
Start whistling at him. Hey.
One of two different kinds of old men. In here.
Yeah, that's right. That's crazy, dude. So at 1 o'clock you heard that, and that's September. It ain't getting dark for a minute. At
No,
1
sir.
o'clock.
No, sir, it's not. So I grabbed my bow and waited.
Get ready.
Dude, did you stay ready the whole time after you heard that cough? Was it just like pins
Yes,
and
sir.
needles?
Yeah. Because, see, that bed was just in the mountain oil. So when he stood up, I mean, I need to be ready. Like, I need to be moving. So, I mean, I'm not saying I was sitting here like this, but I had...
Just on alert.
Yeah, I was in my lock on. I had my bow in my lap. I turned to where I could shoot the scrape sitting down. So all I had to do whenever he got up was get up, get my bow up and shoot. So at 4:54, he stood up. I saw him on his third step out, and at 4:59, he was dead.
Gosh, that's early. That's real early for
that time
September in Alabama.
Well, that's what you get when you're in the bedroom. That they're going to get up every now and then, but that's just it's crazy how we talk about hunting a specific deer through cameras, and then you hunt a specific deer without cameras. And how'd you do it? Off a sign, and what I knew it was there to kill him. What you needed to do, and there was a lot of thought that went into that. It wasn't like I found it in March. I'm gonna drop a plan the night before the hunt. That was a lot of planning because of how you accessed it and did all those things. So it's always a constant thought of, hey, how can I move on this deer? How can I move through these mountains?
Go ahead.
I'll throw a couple more details in there about it as to why I chose that spot that early too, because every bed you find's not, going to have a buck in it that early. A lot of those rubs around where he was at were smaller, like in some little kind of high stem count stuff, and they were old when I found them. So like this year, but they were old. So I knew they had to be, around early bow season, something like that.
Like little whip rubs.
Yeah. And then on top of that, from where his bed was going around that drain head that popped out of the mountain laurel, there was a little mountain oak flat that, they're the first acorns that drop. And I knew that if there were acorns there, he was probably going to be there. So what I did is when I eased up there and got to where I was, going to sit, I had my binoculars on me and glassed up towards there, where the bed was, and I could see the fresh rubs coming from that bed.
Yeah.
So I knew that if he wasn't in there that day, at some point he was spending time
still
in there.
there.
So, it wasn't just found a bed and went and hunted it. There was a little more.
Yeah.
He should be here because.
Well, and you also, I think the coolest part about that is when you found it in March, you spent time. I find when I'm doing the same thing, even in the moment, man, I was scouting this past weekend and I found some really, really good stuff. And I kind of rushed myself, and I was like, when I got back to the truck, I was like, man, I should have looked a little bit more. I was in a hurry. I had to meet somebody, and that was why I didn't. But when you do those scouting trips, not always, but a lot of times I'll speed scout and I'll miss things and I'll come back the next time like, I don't really remember what was here. Like what was this? What was this? And I just didn't do due diligence, learning the place. Once I figured out, hey, there's probably a deer here that's worth my time. However, man, the times that I have been diligent with it, it's paid off. I mean, it's a good thing to do that, to go that extra step and spend time. Like when you find that thing that tells you this is where a mature deer is spending his time at, trust it, and learn it.
And like you said, the speed scouting is really good because you can cover ground and you know what you're looking for. So if you're not in that area, keep pushing. But even if I'm short on time, kind of like you said, I like to go back and spend that time, as soon as you can.
And I'll add to that, a lot of people I think don't do that because they're scared they're going to mess something up. They're going to go too deep or they're going to scare the deer out of the area. The best time to do it is out of season.
Yeah.
Whether it's March or whether it's now, get in there and learn the whole area.
Yep.
Just go ahead and blow it up because it's going to have time to.
Yeah.
They're not going to leave.
The big one's probably not going to be there now. You can go do anything you want to do in there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I have a buddy. He'll go to the area. He'll see something. And he'll just look at it real quick, and then he's out. And then I'm like, well, did you know what was over the next ridge? Because that may have been where the kill spot was. You know, you just if you get in there quick and don't know, it's hard to do anything.
Yeah.
What's your favorite time? What's your favorite time to be in the woods after a specific deer? Like, what's your favorite time of the season? Yeah.
First week of September.
Yeah.
He loves the rut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was kind of my point. Like, the rut kind of takes everything. It puts a big hole in your plan whenever you're making.
The rut's
plan.
my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
It's fun. I'm not like saying, oh, I hate the rut. It's fun, but you got to throw a lot of stuff out. Like, you just got to go have fun with it. Know a good deer's in an area and go hunting. If you see a good one, shoot it. If you just want to shoot that deer, be ready to sit a lot.
I hear this a lot from people, though.
Yeah.
Even in conversation with Cody this afternoon, talking about early season, it's just a really good time to pattern a deer. I mean, I think there are some differences, though, when you talk about southern, especially southern mountain deer, man.
Absolutely.
Like, there's not many opportunities that you get that deer's even on its feet in the daylight, unless you're doing what you're talking about, getting where you can hear them cough.
Yeah.
You know?
That's to go deeper with what you just said. I'm trying to get that close to them any time of the year, and that's why the rut's tough on me, because you can't. But yeah, it's early season finding those bubbles, because you're looking on one deer on a 1,200 acre mountain. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a chance I'll never have what happened in that situation again. But here, when it comes to, talking specifically Alabama, that kind of stuff, mid-November is probably my favorite, because they're locked into an area, but does are on their mind, communicating with other deers on their mind, checking other deers on their mind, and seeing what's going on. So scrapes are, out of the last 10 bucks I've killed, 7 of them are on a scrape that either I built or I freshened up. So
even early.
Yeah.
Even early.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is a pretty magical time of year, especially enough about a deer to anticipate him being somewhere and leave it alone. And, a lot of other people maybe not going in there, and you can expect a week of he should come through here and he should be, willing to daylight. You can kill a deer like that really, really quick.
Does it feel to you like it happens almost exactly a month before the rut, pretty much anywhere you're at? So if you're in Kentucky, it might be early October or September. If you're here in Alabama, in some places, November. And sometimes in Alabama, you got a January, February rut. December is kind of when it's like the first time they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Not vulnerable. It's the first time that your pressure isn't at the top of their mind all the time. Like the does kind of creep in there. And then you got acorns that kind of creeps in there and gives you a little chance to get in close, know? And so it feels like to me that it's always, no matter where I am, that time is a month before.
Yeah. That month period to 2 weeks before the rut, like, they're moving they're making that shift into their fall areas. If you can catch them right when they move in there, they're probably going to daylight. And then if front hits in that time, and you know what he likes to do, I mean, and usually that's around the first cold front.
Yeah.
So
first cold front is, I love first cold front.
Me too.
Mainly because I'm not sweating, and that's the main reason.
And it's good. Like you can find the sign and still hunt that way, but knowing that a deer is in an area really helps in that part of the season. Like when it's not the rut, knowing he's there and knowing, I don't know. I've had cameras. I've had a camera up in a certain spot, and I've hunted. So I've hunted this spot about 5 years. Put cameras up last year for the first time. Every year for those 5 years. When I found the spot, it was November, like the first week of November, and I was like, what the flip is going on here?
Where'd this come from?
And there was just monster rubs, scrapes everywhere. And I would hunt it and be like, man, I killed one buck there on November the 7th, I think, one year. It was a good season, not a huge deer, but first buck I'd killed on early November in that spot. It's like, cool, there's a buck in here. That's neat. Last year I hung cameras on it for the first time, and while I was in Kansas, these bucks were showing up, and it was crazy, man. Like, we're a month out from the rut, okay, like a solid month out from the rut, and I was having every single quote unquote target deer, every mature deer that I had on that camera was showing up at like 7:30 in the morning and fighting for 3 hours every day. You remember me sending these pictures?
I remember it.
I mean, they're big deer, big deer for anywhere. And I'm in Kansas, like, man, I'd shoot these deer if I were, if they walked out in front of me right now, I'd shoot these deer. And it was crazy, dude, because it's just like a week, maybe 3 days. And it was like they had an alarm set to fight on that spot the 1st of November.
Yeah. And that's the magic thing about cameras. Like, do you have to have cameras to kill deer? Absolutely not.
No.
But that is a key bit of intel that you'd never, ever know or expect. And like that, running those cameras on that stuff is the only way that you're going to know that. You might find something just like you said with crazy sign and is the place out of a million places to kill a big deer, but there's a 3-day window. And now you know that.
Yeah. And I could have known that. Here's the cool thing. I could have known that without cameras, but the camera, I mean, I did know that without cameras. I was finding the sign every year.
Confirmed it.
But it just confirmed it. And now I think I could go in a little bit different, probably knowing what I know. I think what the cameras did is they confirmed where the deer were actually coming from that time of the year, which is a totally different story from what they do during the rut, which is where I've killed several bucks there in that area in the rut. But early season is a totally different story. But it is crazy. That just kind of goes to prove that, like, dude, I think that early season, when you're going after a specific deer, a particular deer that you have in mind, or if you have a floor, if you have a what's the word I'm looking for?
Certain caliber?
Yeah, caliber of deer that you're looking for, that's a good time to do it. A month before the rut, anywhere you're at, like anywhere in the country, I think. It's a good time for it.
And you brought up a great point with the cameras, too, is like you knew that was happening from years of intel, but then you put your cameras up and it confirmed that. And I think with us, and especially Drake, you've had cameras out for years and years and years, so you've been able to follow these bucks, with your cameras to know, okay, this year they're going to be here at this time, and then they move here, and then you stack that up, and when they hit that age, you have kind of a up-and-comers sitting over here, but then you just cycle them in and out if they don't get killed, and so
filtering through.
Yeah, you learn stuff by not being there.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a cell camera, a non-cell camera, you're going to learn stuff. Not even have to be in the woods.
That's what the particular deer and situation that me and you were a part of.
Yeah.
I was in there. There's a scrape in there, and the reason I was in there that day is that same week for 2 years previous, he had daylighted on one scrape.
Yeah, you had it figured out.
Yeah. So, and that's like going back to the cameras. Like that's the kind of stuff that it's hard to know. And another thing they're useful for is just there's not a lot of mature bucks, but you can find a decent amount of mature bucks. But where we live, how many of those mature bucks are going to be 110 or 15 inches?
A lot of them.
So you can find the best sign you want to find and find everything you need and go in there, and he's a 15-inch wide 6-point that weighs 200 pounds.
Yeah.
I got a tag for one of them.
Yeah.
Every year they gave me 3 of them. So
I'd love to kill a big 6-point, but I had never got to shoot one.
The sixes are hard.
I got a big one, man. He's one of the ones that's in that little spot.
Oh,
and
really?
He's like 230. His body's huge.
He's He's a big boy, but he's not a very big antler deer. But I mean, that just goes. There are a lot of mature deer.
Yep.
And when you actually, if you let somebody from the state of flipping Alabama age your deer, then they're all mature. They're every single basket rack. If it's got a rack, he's 4.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
At all the WMAs,
He's
according to the
the
biology.
first 2 years.
Yeah.
But there really are there's a decent amount of mature deer out there.
The age structure here is really not bad.
No, it's not bad.
It's really not.
But they're not all going to be maybe the type of deer that we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, the one that's just going to really like set you off for 3 years. You know, like there's not many of them.
No.
They don't exist everywhere.
No.
Man, dude, like this is getting me fired up. This whole conversation is getting me.
I'm sitting here dazed because I'm thinking about where I'm going to go scout this weekend.
I could talk about this probably till next Thursday.
Yeah, just be ready to go.
Well, I'm really I've gotten in the zone, man. In the last 2 weeks, I've been recording a lot of these podcasts, and it's helped me get out of turkey season pretty well. Like I've recovered better than most years, and I'm really looking forward to the season because I heard somebody really smart say the other day, be the dumbest person in the room. If you want to be successful, be the dumbest person in the room. And I think, you know, the No Days Off series that we're doing and the guys that we're talking to have bigger trophy walls than I've got, you know, and it's been cool to learn, and I feel like it's pumped me up. But I want to go back to talking about bedding, man. Like you mentioned it. It was one of the first things you mentioned. I want to know where a deer beds. And I think maybe as a content creator, you've probably done this too, Matt. Like bedding and all that stuff was trendy for a minute. Like talking about pulling hair
how
from
many
beds.
Could you find? Yeah. You dig in there and you pull up a little root, and it's not even the hair, you know.
So we've gotten away from it. I feel like maybe a little bit, but it is a very common denominator in almost every single killer's like need to know things. I got to know where he beds. If I don't know anything else, I've got to know where he beds.
Doesn't matter where he is at night.
Yeah. It can. I mean, he could be anywhere.
Yep.
And I mean, I think that's the reason why you have a lot of people getting big pictures of big deer, and less people shooting the big deer.
Oh yeah.
Because that's, I mean, like for example, we went, out of some scouting trip here. Place with a little bit of history, but also looking for some new bucks. Found two really, really nice deer. And located them in crops. Spent the entirety of the time looking for those beds. And as early as it is, you can afford to bump a deer. Like, I wouldn't do it if it was 2 weeks before the season, but they're probably going to be, early season opener. You can probably bet that they're going to be around there unless they get bumped too much. We spent the whole time looking for where those deer were living, and we ended up bumping both of them between about 11 and 12 o'clock in the middle of some hot days, and that's exactly what we're honing in on. I mean, we know exactly where when those deer are there, where their bellies are. So.
And this is not here. This is another state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, different state. I mean, that's anytime I go to Midwest or shoot, just pretty much anywhere north of Alabama, north of Tennessee doesn't even count too. Like that early season bedding it's if you can figure that out, man. It's
I found one of the biggest beds I'd ever found this past year in like a stilt grass clump. I mean, it was huge, had poop in it and everything, but he had already shifted. It was an early season or summer bed rather than an early season bed, so it wasn't fresh. And it's like, man, he was right here.
When you see it, it's just
it stands out, and that's how you can learn from it. I've had people go, well, what does a deer bed look like? Some people have never seen a deer bed.
a bean.
It's just it lays there. Finding them in the open hardwoods is tough, but when you see them, they stand out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
But like you said, when it's steep like that, people aren't looking on steep hillside faces like that.
Well, it's just got me wanting to figure it out even more now than I did before. I think that it's such an important. I want to be the best early season hunter that I can be. That's a goal of mine. Okay, October. If I could kill a buck in October every single year,
Oh, that.
dude, I'd feel great about myself.
Yeah.
I'd feel like
Well, it would
the
take
best.
pressure off during the rut, to where you can
Definitely
kind
would
of
do
go,
that.
hey,
Yeah.
I'm good, and not saying, killing a deer in the rut's a bad thing. If I kill all 3 of my deer in Alabama during the rut, that's fine. But I'd love to kill an early season bow buck. An early season bow buck's just special.
Yeah.
Something special.
They're
about that.
different.
Here it's so hard, man. It really is. But if you can find them, you can kill them.
Do you think the heat is what it is? I mean, you say that November, probably that second week of November, so you're talking about a little bit colder conditions, and it almost, we don't get to feel like the Midwest until November. Like their October mornings up there are 40-degree mornings. Like we don't get those much.
Yeah. Well, when you say the heat is what it is, do you mean like why they don't move much, or why they?
Just why it's hard up there.
Do you feel like it's the heat, or do you feel like it's the terrain? Do you feel like it's a mixture of both?
I think it's a combination of terrain, habitat, and pressure.
Okay, pressure.
Go knock on any door, talk to anybody walking down the street, and ask them if they have deer hunted before that live here. Because you can go to other states and they may have killed one deer, but everybody here hunts. Yeah, everybody here hunts, and they do it from bow season till at least the rut, and can scratch the itch of the rut. Pretty much whether you're talking about swamps in South Alabama or mountains in Northeast Alabama, or where they thin pines on any other WMA, it's all seems to be extremely monotonous to me, no matter what it is that you're in. A really serious needle in a haystack situation when up north there's not as much bedding. There's also not as much pressure. There are times that have more pressure, but it's just going to push them into certain types of bedding areas more. Here, I think, and I guess this can go into more of my experiences looking for a lot of deer. What you see on a map, and usually you can't see them on a map like exactly, but what you might see on a map that, I could see this big deer being on this little point, or I could see this big deer being here. You've got to check 100 of them. And if you're not checking every single, like you said, nook and cranny and everything, then you're probably not going to find them. And also because it's so monotonous, there might not, it's really random. Like they might have one little point or one little something they like in one spot, and then the other spot that they like and feel comfortable might be a mile away. And the only reason being is because, they've never seen somebody walk there.
Yeah.
And you can't tell that looking at a map either. Where do people walk right past, or where do people not walk to, or what? So the level of scouting that it takes to find that little hole in the wall, I think, is the barrier that seems impossible to break. Like when I decide that I'm going to look for a deer in the mountains, just like the steep mountains around here, I mean, I'm scouting for them at least 50 miles a year, like in the off season. So, and that's within maybe 2 or 3 different areas that span, or that are 200 acres apiece. Like bubbles that are 200 acres might have 3 of them for one deer, and I'm scouting probably 50 miles within those a year for one deer. So, I mean, you just gotta, you've got to walk every hillside, you've got to walk every ridge, you've got to walk the other side of every ridge, and because it could be anywhere. So I think that's the biggest barrier to get through.
Do you know what the biggest barrier for me in what you're talking about is? That I always feel like most of the places that I'm like, man, that's the prime. That's where they're at in the early season. I mean, it's not a secret. We're killing a lot of deer on property lines. If you're a public land hunter, you're killing a lot of the big deer are coming off of private, crossing over a corner of public. And sometimes there's like the only thing you've got on the public stuff is monotonous, like you're saying. There's not really any reason for the deer to be there, but you're scouting. I'm scouting spots, not necessarily knowing for sure there's a buck bedded here. It's very rare that I find a spot that's like, this is on public, that I'm hunting the deer 100% on public. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm always coming in from public, but I'm usually coming in from public and walking right up to a corner of a property.
Yeah.
And it's harder. It's so much harder to early season hunt when you're doing it that way. And so you almost have to, if you want to kill deer in October, part of the reason I'm not seeing them is because they're not coming off of that private. They got a corn pile or a food plot over there.
And that's something you can't contend with it.
You can't.
Like as you know, a lot of the deer in this state that I'm hunting, if they've stepped onto private land in their whole life, it hasn't been many times.
So you like the big, deep, heart of the public
type stuff. If he's breathing,
stuff.
I want to be able to hunt him.
Yeah.
Because you can chase him more when you have
you can play the game.
3,000 acres that he's not going to go off of.
Yeah, you can play the game. I'm not going to say that they've never gone on somewhere you can't hunt, but they spend a lot of time where you can. So that is tough. That what you're talking about is a hard. Because sometimes you just gotta wait it out, I guess.
You really do.
On to be there.
You really do. That's why. I told you I've been really thinking a lot about this in early season, where these deer are summering at and things, and that's why I feel like points overlooking water is a great start for summertime bedding, and somewhere between there and the rut spots is probably pretty good early season. It may be the closest you get to them, and so it's been on my mind a lot recently. And it is a frustrating part about public land hunting, especially big woods public land hunting, because during the summertime,
everything looks the same.
Yeah, and there's not much reason for them to be there.
Any type of timber cut's going to be the same. It's either going to be a clear cut or it's going to be a thin pine stand. Yeah. They may have fire run through it. They may not. You really don't know, and it's not like, hey, they're going to plant something different over here. Oh, here's a CRP field that deer are living in. Yeah. There's thickets around here. The deer don't get in them. They just don't live in those thickets. People say hunt thick. There's a lot of different definitions for that on hunting thick.
A lot of different definitions.
But I've seen many of thickets I walk through. There's no deer sign in it.
Yeah.
Nothing. A pine stand that was thinned down to like 20, 30 basal area, a lot of sunlight hitting the ground. There's one trail going through it. So it's finding those areas where, hey, This is here's one here, like you said. They're 2 different miles apart, but they're the same, and that buck does whatever with it.
Yeah.
The mountains offer up the opportunity to do what you're talking about, though, I think.
Yeah, they do. There's not – you can't do this kind of stuff just anywhere. You got to have at least enough land to have one of those bubbles encompassed in it, not just passing through.
Well, that's where the what you were talking about with the nighttime photos. Everybody has a nighttime photo of a big buck. Everybody.
Yeah.
And then some people will hunt that same spot where he was at 12 o'clock all year. But if you can ever find the freedom to break out and say, okay, he's only there at night, I'll probably find him half a mile down the road. Good chance. Very good chance. Because they travel a long ways. Yeah. Such a long ways.
Well, dude, this has been great. It's been a good conversation. I've been on here for about an hour. I had somebody just say that the picture in the feed is weak online. So
who said it?
Dwayne.
Dwayne. Okay, I don't know Dwayne.
Let's see.
It's fuzzy or something?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well. Sorry about that. Sorry, Dwayne. Drake, this has been good, dude.
Man, I've had a blast.
I
hope I ain't talked too much.
No, man.
Hey, we all talk, man. That's what it's about.
Yeah, this has been awesome. We've had this on our plans for a minute to have you on.
we've been talking about it for a while now. But
I'm glad we were all together. That's what makes it fun.
I am too.
Rather than being on a screen. That's
point,
that's
Matt.
The same.
I'm just glad to be here with you guys.
I'm serious. Like it's
we're all at Matt's house. Just having a blast.
It's good. This is first. Y'all have first people I've ever had up here, so to do anything like this. So It's fun. It's like I said, it's got me fired up. I'm gonna have to get my cameras ready tonight.
Ain't no doubt.
Hit the woods quick.
Yeah. No, seriously, I appreciate y'all just letting me be on, man. I've enjoyed the heck out of it, and it means the world getting to do this kind of stuff. So.
Here's one last question for you, okay?
All right.
This guy Rawls says the real question. Oh man, it went away.
How far are you willing to walk?
The real question is, how far are you willing to walk into public land where there's no pressure? What's your? Do you have a cutoff of like, I won't walk this far?
I'm gonna say this. No, I don't have a. If I feel like there could be a big deer there, I mean, like I said, it took 5 hours to get into that one spot, but at the same time, whatever, I kill out of the road.
Yeah.
So where the I think a lot of the guys, a lot of people think deeper is less people, but a lot of the times in situations, a lot of people will think that. And what the situation was with my biggest deer ever is that's what everybody on the property was doing. And there was a very small bedding area that people were walking right past, and there was a 164-inch deer living in it. So, I mean, yes, I will go as far as I need to go, but don't overlook something that could be right in your face. I mean, there's a lot of big deer that'll also watch you drive by.
Yeah.
So,
Golly, so many. That is.
And it's hard to accept.
Yeah.
Usually when they see a car, they're out. But big ones know what they're doing.
yeah.
Especially, I mean, you hear people, oh, well, he didn't get up till I was 15, 20 yards from him because he knew he was safe.
If they feel comfortable.
He thought you may just take a left and just keep on walking.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy they can hide that big old stupid rack too.
It just looks like a blowdown.
Yeah, it just blends in. Vibes.
Oh man.
But-
Well, fellas, this has been good. It's been real. Got anything to add? Anything, Matt?
Great stuff.
Thanks for opening
Go
up your
Scout.
home.
Hey,
Yeah.
let's do it again.
Your office. This place is sweet, dude.
We'll do it again.
All right.
I'll get better Wi-Fi for a better picture.
Hey, dude. All you got to do is get that old AT&T fiber that we got.
Be nice.
Crap's good.
Be real nice.
Just get him to run something out here for you.
Yeah, just come on.
Just dig a little hole, little ditch.
Dig a hole. I'll get it ready for you.
Dig a little ditch down the road.
All right, y'all. We're going to close off on this thing. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We're super excited about the series, No Days Off. So it's going to be every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So we'll air this one on the podcast feed on Thursday. So thank you guys, though, for joining us live. Enjoyed the conversation. Enjoyed everybody adding to it. Again, Drake, thanks for coming on.
Man, thank y'all so much.
Good luck this
it's been
season.
a lot of fun.
Good luck this season, and we will talk to you guys. If you're listening to the podcast, we'll talk to you tomorrow on Tuesday. If you are watching this thing live, we'll talk to you Monday. You can listen to this episode again on Monday if you want to, or we'll talk to you Tuesday.